who said 4 wheels good, 2 wheels better. Orwell? Kipling? Che Guevara? I don't know. But whoever it was, they were a ruddy genius. And I'm here on the Isle of Man to find out why.
How did we get from this beautiful, ingenious and terrifying on a high-speed corner to homemade bikes and highly developed machines that could outperform the best the bike industry had to offer, to this, a bike that can do 100 miles an hour, it's easy to ride, easy to maintain, and you don't have to sell the house or have a professional racing license to get one.
So why are 2 wheels better? And what is it about them that makes you just have to do things like that? More than any other machine, road bikes provide the opportunity to have mind-bogglingly high-speed thrills at an affordable price. And if I had to pick one place in the entire universe that has contributed more to the evolution of thrilling high-speed road bikes, it would be the TT course here on the Isle of Man, home of the famous Tourist Trophy, otherwise known to its friends as the Manx TT. The TT has been run since 1907, but today it's the first time round the course for me. Yes.
TT champion Richard Quayle is here to show me the right lines to ride on this thrilling but dangerous course that has taken as many lives as it has made heroes. It's got every type of challenge, and it's all on closed-off ordinary roads. Bike manufacturers have come to the Isle of Man for 100 years to prove that theirs is the ultimate road bike of the age. And in machines like this beautiful Manx TT winning Rudge multi-gear lie the origins of modern superbikes. Like many bike makers, Rudge was a bicycle company which crossed over into the new motorized two-wheelers. Rudge started in the 1870s in the upstairs room of a pub where the landlord was one Dan Rudge. In 1910, they started playing with engines. And their big break came at the 1914 Manx TT with the multi-gear, so called because it solved one of the early problems of motorbikes, changing gear. In many ways, this motorcycle is absolutely typical of its era. It's got a bicycle frame, bicycle-style brakes, even a little lamp up front to see where you're going at night. And it's got a 500cc single-cylinder engine producing 3.5 horsepower, which is about a 10-fold improvement on a pair of very fit legs. But like most early motorbikes, Rudge had replaced the traditional bicycle chain with a leather belt to connect the engine to the rear wheel. In the early days of motorcycling, chain drives were considered too harsh and snatchy. Leather belts were much more organic and giving, and made for a smoother ride. But when you came to a steep hill, it was a bit of a problem. On a bicycle faced with a hill like this, most people immediately select first gear, moving the chain from a small cog to a larger one, making it easier to pedal up the hill, because each rotation of the pedals now moves the rear wheel only part of one rotation. I'm currently in first gear, so every turn of the pedals moves the rear wheel just 1/3 of a turn. But when you change into a higher gear, the rear of the chain slips onto a smaller cog and the chain goes a bit loose and floppy, which is fine with a chain which still grips the teeth. But a floppy drive belt gives you no drive. It must be tight because it relies on friction to grip. In fact, many early bikers carried a spare belt, stopping at the bottom of the hill to change gear and change the belt. Useless if you're trying to win a race. Rudge's solution was a brilliantly simple piece of mechanical engineering, which for the first time allowed belt-driven bikes to change gear on the move. They did this with some very clever adjustable pulleys. The belt sits in 2 V-shaped pulleys like that, and the larger of the 2 pulleys attached to the rear wheel here is driven by the smaller of the 2 pulleys at the front here, which in turn is driven by the engine. Just like a bicycle, to get into low gear you need to change the gear ratio by making the front pulley bigger or the rear one smaller.
the multi-gear does both. Pull on the gear lever and the front pulley is squeezed. The belt moves up the V and is pushed out to a wider circle. And the exact opposite happens at the back. The gear ratio has been changed. And by making one pulley smaller and the other bigger, the tension in the belt has also been maintained. Brilliantly simple idea.
So let's put it to the test, shall we? Here I am with a stonking great Manx hill right ahead of me, and I'm in a low gear, and it's doing very well at the moment. I can probably go into a slightly higher gear. Giving it a bit of throttle. Oh yes. And of course the good point about every hill, not only do you have to go up it, but you go down it as well. Absolutely magnificent. That's out at about 38 miles an hour. Yes!
On the 21st of May 1914, Rudge entered a multi-gear in the Manx TT, ridden by 21-year-old Londoner Cyril Pullin. Pullin won on the Rudge multi-gear with an average speed of 49.486 miles an hour, a new record tantalizingly close to the 50 miles an hour mark. A bike would never win the Manx TT again without gears. Rudge went on to produce one of the first 100-mile-an-hour road bikes. But, unfortunately, public roads weren't really up to that sort of speed in 1930. So, the bike didn't sell, and as is the fate of so many true innovators, Rudge closed down a few years later.
Instead, it was on one of these, one of the most fantastic speed machines of all time, that most bikers first experienced the magic ton, 100 miles an hour.
While many manufacturers used racing success to sell their road bikes, this company found another way to grab the attention of thousands of thrill-seeking bikers.
They came here, to Brooklands, in the south of England.
In June 1937, BSA persuaded legendary bike racer Walter Handley out of retirement to ride a prototype loosely based on the 1937 BSA M23 Empire Star. If Walter Handley could achieve an average lap time here of 100 miles an hour, he would be awarded membership of Brooklands Gold Star Club, and BSA would sell loads of bikes. The track would have been a bit smoother then, but not much. But Handley did it, reaching an average speed of 107.57 miles an hour. BSA were in the club.
No small feat for Walter Handley or the BSA team. And thanks to those daredevil laps, we, the grateful bikers of the world, were given the glorious BSA Gold Star.
The BSA Gold Star made selective use of racing bike technology to massively increase the speed of the bike without a massive price tag. Most importantly for a high-speed bike, it had a great power-to-weight ratio. This bike looks light, and it is. On the power side, it had a single-cylinder 500cc engine which was still pretty standard for road bikes at the time, but 48 horsepower in such a light bike was more than a match for heavier bikes with more power. But ironically, the BSA Gold Star was most loved not for its top speed, but for its sports car-like acceleration. This bike's biggest secret weapon was inside its gearbox.
And this was it, a very large first gear. Using that superb power-to-weight ratio, this bike could get you moving and up steep hills using sheer grunt rather than a smaller first gear. Instead, this big one gets you all the way to 60 miles an hour.
So let's see how tall this legendary first gear is, shall we? Off we go. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour! And change, what a feeling! Superb!
While bikers everywhere were pushing the Goldie to do the ton, an extraordinary single-cylinder racing bike was paving the way for a whole new era of road bikes that would bring millions of new disciples to the altar of two-wheel speed.